Hey everybody, I hope you're having a fantastic week. I'm Brian Romo with PKI Solutions, and this is Minding the Key Store. And if you are stuck on what kind of credentials you might need, what kind of rights you might need in Active Directory in order to get certificate services going, or if you're curious about SHA1 to SHA2 migrations and how that's impacted going from one CA chain to another, we are digging through our Vault archives, and we've got a session from June of 2020. This is presented by PKI Solutions. This is Mark and Jake and Vadims going through an office hours session, answering some of your questions. If you love what you see here and you like what we're putting together on the channel, we would love it if you would do the YouTube things, like, share, subscribe, do all of the things, comment below what you like, what you don't like. We'd love to hear from you. I hope you have a fantastic end of your week, and without further ado, we'll get right into the vault.
All right, well, welcome. We are in episode 3 of the office hours here at PKI Solutions. It looks like we've got a good group that's joining us today, so welcome everybody. And yes, Paul, we totally paid the appropriate royalties. I have a check that's going out in the mail right now. So I'd much rather have sent the check to somebody who is willing to work up our own theme song. But I guess I just don't know enough GarageBand people. How about you, Jake or Vadims? You guys know anyone that has a band that we should solicit to do a theme song?
I don't. The music is changing. I'll say that from my kids.
How about you, Vadims? Do you know any musicians there in Latvia that we could reach out to?
I'm not sure.
No, I'm going to take that as a no. Yeah. No, we don't have anything. We don't have anyone. All right. Well, we've got a few things to go through today. As always, we are here for questions. So if you are coming to the show for the first time and you've got some PKI questions to let us know, you can post it over in the Q&A channel. Here on the chat channel, if you want to introduce yourself, if this is your first time, if you want to chat amongst yourselves, I see some of our usual suspects are here, so thanks for coming back every week, Paul and Riva. Mike, I see you here on a regular basis as well, so Daniel as well, so thanks for coming back. We've got a couple things to go through, but again, we'll take questions as you post them. We got a few items that were sent to us ahead of time, so we'll get to those as well. And then, as always, there's no slide deck. So this is pretty much going to be us wasting an hour of your time talking PKI. But I promise we won't go over to any of the slide decks. Andy is also helping us out here. If you've got some questions, he may reach out and see if you're willing to come on either the camera or the microphone and ask a question. So let us know what's brewing, how everyone's doing. I know here in Portland, we're just about to get into phase 1 recovery from COVID. Jake, what's happening where you're at there in Tennessee?
I think technically, I'm not sure where we are physically, but everyone's doing their thing. I mean, everyone's back. Yeah.
And Vadims in Latvia, is there a phased recovery from COVID, or are you in complete lockdown still?
No, we are open. For last week, first 3 days, we had 0 new incidents. So
yeah. Is anyone else out there still in full lockdown, or is anyone else like us just starting to get back into the recovery? Let us know. I'm interested to see how people are seeing that. In a completely unrelated note to COVID, Jake and I were pointing out there's a little bit of work that we did, and because of the COVID impact and air travel and shipping delays, it took quite a bit of time. But for those astute Vadims aficionados out there, you may notice a strange thing around Vadim's neck called a collar. Vadims has some new shirts that we had made up, and we sent him. It took a good, I think, about 6 or 7 weeks to get from my house to Vadims in Latvia. Vadims, is this the first shirt that you've worn with collars, or is it just been our luck to only see you in t-shirts?
No, it's not first.
Okay. So if you want to see Vadims back in T-shirts, now you can let us know in chat. Maybe we'll start a little poll if Vadims should stay in T-shirts. We'll have to see if
in color T-shirt.
yeah. Oh, yeah. There you go. What color? Go back to yellow. I think yellow has been your favorite one, from what I can tell.
No.
No. All right. All right. All right. So one of the things that came in that I thought that we could touch on, I know that we've done a blog article on this a while ago, but it's still something that comes up, and somebody had emailed us. Yeah, no tie for Vadims. All right. And this is around one of these things that we talk about in the in-depth course, but it's this whole RSA, SSA, PSS signature algorithm, or better known as the PKCS #1 version 2.1 signatures. And I asked the guys before the show if anyone kind of wants to carry this one. Vadim said, well, maybe. Jake, how do you feel about this one?
I don't especially love the idea
of you talking about it, or
yeah,
it? Yeah. All right. So I'll give you the summary, and then we'll see how the guys feel about this one. So the easiest way to point to this one is if you've ever seen reference to discrete signature algorithm in any of the Microsoft guides or in the PKI book, it's actually listed as alternate signature algorithm. But what it's doing is enabling a slightly improved, but now very dated improvement to the PKCS signature process. So every time a certificate or a CRL is signed, the CA uses a format to create that signature, and that's the PKCS #1. Right around 2011, there was a new version of that signature format, the version 2.1. It improved the signature algorithm slightly, like very minor. And as a result, you can certainly choose to enable it. It's a very slight security improvement. The big downside is nothing seems to support this other than Windows. No iOS devices, no Cisco devices, no appliances, Android, Java. Everybody hates this thing. So for a really small security capability, it really doesn't offer a whole lot in the way of value, and actually causes a lot of problems. Jake or Vadims, have you guys worked with any environments where this has been there and has caused problems?
Yeah, we had a client that had we were working with around NDES, and it seemed to cause NDES a lot of trouble when we were trying to do their NDES. So that's one. My biggest thing was it fouls up NDES. Yeah,
and that's a Microsoft thing.
Exactly.
So and Vadims, have you had any exposure to this whole signature algorithm stuff?
Yes, I did. And it work only with a couple of built-in Windows services like IIS, remote desktop protocol, and I think that's all. Where it is fully supported, and it isn't supported by entire System Center product line. SQL Server. SQL Server supports it.
It's probably an endless of things that don't support it.
Yes. And what is interesting that even Microsoft mainstream products such as System Center, Exchange Server doesn't support it because they are built on top of .NET Framework, which didn't have such a support prior to very recent versions. .NET Core supports it, but it is a no game changer.
Yeah.
And in fact, I checked these PSS specs on RFC, and it was supposed to improve signature with random padding, but this generation function is static. So in fact, it doesn't improve a classic PKCS one signature.
Yeah, and it's a funny story that I tell too, because if you look through the PKI book, it's actually the wrong entry. It's discrete signature algorithm is listed in the book, because in the beta, when the book was written, that was the syntax that you would add into the CA policy INF to affect this. And the irony is it actually would have broken every single Microsoft PKI with Server 2008, because nothing supported it. Everybody was still on Vista, and Vista doesn't support it either. So I think that the easy thing to say is that the RSA, SSA, PSS signature, or PKCS 2.1, which is now almost 10 years old, isn't going to get any broader adoption. We're not going to see more systems take advantage of it, and it causes a lot of problems. Probably the big saving grace is the fact that there's a lot of references out there that are using the wrong syntax. So you kind of have to dig to find the right syntax in order to turn this thing on. Relating to that, I know that we had a question come up maybe last year where somebody said, I did it, how do I undo it? And in fact, it's not as easy as, oh, just change it to =0 in the CA policy INF and renew your CA. It actually has a bunch of registry keys and CA renewals. There's a lot of work to unwind this thing if you do it, depending on where you implemented it. So in short, if you want to get some more details, we've got a blog article. You can go on and take a look and search for RSA, SSA, PSS signatures or alternate signature algorithm. One of those terms will get you to that blog article. Looking over, I see that we did get a question from Riva. Thanks, Riva. I think I'll turn this one to Jake. Jake, Riva asked, getting ready to retire an obsolete PKI, starting with an obsolete CA, which is already stopped and shut down. So as I remove objects from AD one at a time, at what point should I finally see it drop from PKI view?
So if you start removing it from the containers, if you remove it from the enterprise issuing
enrollment service.
Yeah, the enrollment server. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, once you pull it out of there, then we'll stop seeing it show up on the PKI view, and you start cleaning it up after that point.
Yeah, and that's really the discovery point for the PKI is the enrollment services object, right, Vadims?
Yes, and I would add one point that CA may be referenced in enterprise PKI view implicitly when it is a part of a chain. Mm-hmm. It may be missing in Active Directory, but it is referenced implicitly via a chain.
Yeah, and an interesting thing relating to that is Vadims, you and I had an email exchange recently about some work that you were doing with the PSPKI, and you found that there was a little bit of an assumption that we both had made about PKI view, or more specifically around how discovery of CAs go. And there's a concept of a enterprise integrated Active Directory that a lot of people know for their issuing CAs. But you can also technically have a standalone CA that's on an Active Directory member server. So it's not an enterprise CA, it's a standalone CA, but it's on a machine in Active Directory. And it did something kind of surprising when you went looking through there. What was that surprising thing that you saw?
What was a surprising thing?
Yeah, when we were talking about the discovery and standalone CAs and what was getting published.
Yes, I have installed in my lab, standalone CA, which is the main joint, and found that a couple of my scripts start failing. I tried to figure out what is going on, and eventually ended up with the fact that scripts were written in strong assumption that if we read enrollment services from AD, then they are guaranteed to be enterprise CAs. Thus, we can query certificate templates, care recovery agents without catching errors and so on. And it led me to rewrite a lot of things and make changes in PSPKI module.
And I mean, it made sense because, PKI view, if you open it up, it would see a standalone CA if it was on an AD integrated machine. And the way it was doing that is looking at enrollment services. It was just making the distinction between, this is standalone, which means it's not using templates, which is, in all practical purposes, the main change. Enterprise integrated, it's using templates. The standalone, it's not. It's not using any predisposed templates. Everything's coming in the CSR. You have some policy or administrator that's reviewing things, but the discovery was the same thing. It looks for objects that are CAs in the enrollment services. So a little bit of a surprise for us there. Let's see here. Vadim, since we were talking about, you had some news to share about the PSPKI open source tool.
Yes, I have a couple of updates for upcoming PSPKI module, which will include Microsoft Online Responder, which is a Microsoft implementation of OCSP server. We will be able to manage a wide range of aspects of online responders. I've already implemented 14 commandlets just for OCSP servers. So when I will announce it on Twitter, so please give it a try if you have OCSP servers.
Yeah, and the nice thing is this dovetails nicely into a announcement we'll have next week. So the great thing is the development and the continued investment in PSPKI. I know it's extremely popular. I think Vadims, just the other day we were talking about how many downloads of the PSPKI module and some of the other tools that there's been. And there's really two mechanisms, or probably three mechanisms. People can get it directly from GitHub. They can get it through the PS gallery, and they can get it from our site. Just off of our site, I think we had counted 4,000 downloads in the last 6 months. But then on the gallery, it was what, 17,000?
Yes, something about like that.
Yeah, so 20,000 downloads. So I'm going to guess it wasn't the 30 some odd people that are sitting in the room right now who downloaded it 700 times a piece. But if you did, thanks for that. But it definitely seems to be extremely popular, and a lot of people are using that. So I think that's a testament to all the great work that Vadims has put into that tool over the years. So we're certainly proud to have that as part of our continued offering. Jake, I was going to turn to you. Actually, there was another question over here. We'll see how squeamish we get. Somebody was asking about thoughts on quantum resistant PKI. Anyone want to jump into that one there?
Retire.
Well, here's what I say about quantum resistance. We've talked about quantum computing and post-quantum algorithms. We've done some Q&A interviews about them as well. My approach has always been this. So much like anything else in PKI, it's a set of different standards and parts that are in there. The good news is when we talk about quantum computers and the threat, PKI still exists post-quantum. We're really talking about the impact on an algorithm. So just like as an industry, we've moved away from SHA1 because of at the time theoretical exploits and now demonstrated attacks against SHA1. Quantum computers are really a demonstrated attack, not against the concept of asymmetric keys, but against algorithms like RSA and elliptical keys. So the nice thing about PKI is you plug in an algorithm. So just like we can select SHA1 or SHA2, potentially even SHA3 or 4 when that's available, or we could choose between RSA or ECC. Once there are standardized algorithms that are quantum resistant, it's simply a matter of plugging that in, and that becomes the key pair that's associated with a certificate in PKI. So I don't necessarily see PKI changing or PKI having to become quantum resistant. It's all about the algorithms. And we actually, I don't know if that was a setup by Bronis, but thanks for that. We actually just published a Q&A interview with Lily Chen, who's the group manager at NIST, who is leading the algorithm selection and evaluation. They don't like the term contest. So it's a review and selection of federal standards for post-quantum resistant algorithms. So that's undergoing that process. I wouldn't expect to hear of a final selection in the next couple of weeks or months, but it is underway. What that means, unfortunately, as it comes to PKI, is you can't just swap algorithms out. We can't take existing PKIs and say, okay, start using a different algorithm. We're talking about having to renew or replace or migrate PKIs to get to that post-quantum space. So it is in the works. It's just not there quite yet. All right, Jake, I was going to have you talk a little bit about a recent project. Of course, we'll keep it anonymous, but we had some interesting things. I wrote it down here as Jake's SHA1 adventure.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So we were working with a client and still on a SHA1 PKI, and some of the operating systems were a little bit older, and so and there had been quite a few variants of key renewals with same key and then a new key and then same key. So when the time came to pick this up and move it to a SHA2 PKI, getting the keys migrated over and going through that process, and then even some of the older operating systems, CertUtil isn't able to go through or doesn't support the ability to get that SHA1 key into a SHA2. So we had to manually take it to a newer operating system, bring it in, export it, bring it back out. And then just dealing with all of the old keys that had been archived, some of them in various states. It ended up being quite a journey with this client to finally get it going, but we did, got it over, and everything is working well and happy. But that process was a long one compared to like a normal migration, just to a different CA.
Yeah, I think the irony is as we were leading up to that, you had been working on some internal projects, and you're like, yeah, I'm ready to do something a little different.
Yeah,
right.
That was different.
Right? Yeah. You were ready for it.
Yeah, be careful what you ask Mark for.
So somehow we managed to find the craziest ones out there, or the PKIs that need us the most kind of come home and they ask for help. I don't know which it is, whether we attract the problem PKIs or there's just all that way. But it was one where I think we went in kind of expecting 2 or 3 specific problems that we knew of, and there were certainly a larger assortment, and part of it is the OS was now 12 years old, 10 years old, quite old, and some restrictions around what could change and couldn't change. So I think the only thing that was missing is no HSMs, right?
There were not.
Yeah, so
that would have been even
a little more
better.
fun.
Yeah.
We could have definitely had some more fun there. Excellent. So I've got a couple of other questions that came in here. So this one was actually a follow-up from Reva. So thanks, Reva. She was kind of asking, or actually she was clarifying. She was saying that on that CA retirement, that the first one that she's going to remove is a standalone on a member server. So no, we were talking about how the fact that it's in AD, it's showing up in PKI view, it's a standalone CA. So same sort of a thing there, that once it gets removed from enrollment services, that's really when we would expect to see it to start falling away. Now, obviously, the big thing is, if you remove it from there, it's no longer retrievable for enrollment, but it sounds like it's already turned off. It's also going to be in the AIA container for chaining and so forth. So there's definitely a few places for that to get picked up.
So one thing on that, Mark, because Vadims and I kind of talked about this also, and I've seen this at a client where we were purposely trying to build a CA that was standalone.
Mm-hmm.
So you build that. If you run that with local admin rights, we don't automatically publish that.
Yeah.
If you accidentally have too many rights, that's when you get yourself into that pickle where now it's getting published.
I always kind of think it's maybe a silent fail type of a thing where, if you're local, because that'll happen with an enterprise CA2, where I've seen if somebody's accidentally signed in as a local admin, it kind of goes through the processes, but then the event log is full of unable to publish here or there. I wonder with the standalone if it's just a little more silent about it, and maybe the code is a little too agnostic and just says, hey, we're going to stick it up there. So it would be. Yeah, it's definitely one of those that if you're using a wrong set of credentials, it can definitely get you in the trouble.
That's what happened. Yeah.
If funny enough, one of the questions that we get quite a bit. So in our training labs that we have in our courses, the majority of the time people are logging in with domain credentials, and the lab guide says to log in as either Contoso /administrator or administrator at contoso.com. And every once in a while, human nature, you miss it. And especially with Windows now, where it'll show your domain name in the login screen. It'll say Contoso. And then you start typing in administrator into the username. And it defaults to, you want local admin. So it actually just assumes that what you're wanting to do is local admin. So they just type in administrator because it shows Contoso. They don't notice it flips the local machine. They sign in, and then they try to run PKI view and says there's no Active Directory PKI. It's like you're a local admin. So Microsoft has some weird quirks that will definitely make some of those behaviors happen.
Yeah.
Hey Jake, there's a question that actually came in. Scott was asking, what kind of documentation is there on the migration from SHA1 to SHA2?
There's some Microsoft guides out there. They're getting a little bit older, but I will say that some of the hiccups that we faced, there was not great documentation. I went to the bank of Mark to get some of this information, and so luckily I have Mark that I can ask these questions and make sure that I'm on the right track or whatever. But I've not seen one that would have been complete enough to do that. Maybe that's something that we could put some of those steps out on or something like that, because I think there is a void, because I did look and I couldn't find them.
Yeah, I've got one old article that one of the engineers I knew at Microsoft created way back in the day. I mean, it's probably from the 2008 era. And it was a page long. It doesn't cover like all of the other migration stuff. It's simply the process of getting the key from the CSP into the newer CNG-based KSP, and then being able to change the registry keys. And it's just a page or two long. There is a standard migration white paper and articles on Microsoft that cover everything else: how to rename the CA, how to move it to another host, how to fix Active Directory, but it doesn't touch on changing from SHA1 to SHA2. And more specifically, if you're coming from an older OS, that the thing that could prevent you is you could be on server 2019, But if your CA was installed using a CSP, you won't be able to use the newer algorithms. So you have to go through this process. And I think that was one of the little hiccups that we had is this customer, I think it was like 10 different key renewals over the time. And each key had to be imported into the new provider because you tell the CA in the registry, here's the provider we want to use. And if you've got 5 keys in the old provider, it doesn't know how to access that.
Right. Yeah. And even though those keys, a lot of them were completely, it had been expired for years. When we tried to bring the CA up, it reads through them oldest to newest. And as soon as it would hit one that wasn't there, it would give a fail saying it couldn't find the key set, when it was talking about a key set that had, been expired for, years and years and years.
Yeah.
So that was the problem.
Yeah. Yeah. And, especially when there's that many keys, it's just a lot of repetition of exporting and importing and changing. I know we had a few conversations about how can we, do some troubleshooting to kind of track down issues with what key is causing a problem and what there was. And I think in the end, that particular something in the registry of just how it was getting translated from, make this change into what actually went to the registry, and the CA just wasn't reading things right, but we were going down the right path.
Right.
My number one issue I always run into with the registry and Vadims, I don't know if you've ever seen this before or not, but it seems like inevitably if somebody finds a registry key setting or a configuration setting on the web and they copy and paste that into the registry, it brings over odd characters like smart quotes or other hyphens or other configuration that shouldn't be there, like a weird space or a semicolon. Have you ever had experience where you brought settings over from somewhere and it turns out there was a typo or a special character that's caused you consternation?
No, maybe because I never copy paste from internet to my CA.
That's not true. Notepad to WordPad, sometimes you get crazy characters. Just trying to not type it, on the fly.
It happens. It happened in previous versions of Windows when you copy serial number or thumbprint from certificate details. Because Microsoft didn't trim SN characters, which are not printable. And in front they are hidden, and it cost me a lot of pain with Microsoft using mouse sniping to copy exact text without extra characters. And it is fixed in latest Windows versions.
On my Twitter feed today, one of the most active conversations I saw was somebody posting almost kind of a confessional that they said, I use Notepad to strip special characters from text. And it was almost like they were standing up in front of a group therapy session to admit what they do. But I was also equally amazed by how many people said they used the run command. So they do the Windows key, R to start running, and then they paste whatever in there. I have to give a little plug to a utility I found a little while ago called Pure Text. So Pure text. It operates just like Clipboard, and you get an alternate key sequence, but all it does is pure text. So you can copy an entire web page with special characters and graphics. And if you just want the text, you just do an alternate key sequence. So it's amazing how many different processes that people have. But strangely enough, that was the number one thing that people really wanted to respond to is what embarrassing tool do they use? In Vadims, clearly you don't need any of these because you're not doing any copy and pasting. So you're much better. You're much better than all of us. let's see here. We have a couple other questions that came in. Let's see here. David asked a question here. David said, on the subject of renewing a subordinate CA certificate, should we use a new key or not? And I'll fill the rest in, but that's the key of the question. He went on to say, I did this for the first time a couple of weeks ago. Seems to have gone okay. Some sources seem to suggest it's only necessary in certain cases. Otherwise, I replaced the cert, and it looks like the subordinate CA automatically replaces the cert in the LDAP AIA location. I ended up doing this with a new key, but wondered if it was really necessary. Vadims, Jake, what do you guys think of this one? Renew a CA with the new key or the same key?
My opinion on this is pretty plain and simple.
Be nice.
New key in all cases.
Yeah.
Also some documentation and maybe popular but not a very professional suggest to reuse case if they are okay. But when you renew, especially root CA, with existing key pair, you end up with multiple chains for this CA, and you rely on certificate chaining engine logic whether they are able to select a better chain between two or more chains. Yeah. When you generate a new key pair, you guarantee that only single chain will exist for this CA.
Yeah. And Jake, what's your opinion? Any different?
No, it's supposed to be the same. But I will. Let me say this:
the same.
Vadims takes a very black and white approach to these things. But if you're out consulting, sometimes there are circumstances. If like you're going to retire, we had a case with a client who's going to retire a CA in the next couple of months. We just needed to get through it. And if you have a huge presence of non-Windows devices out there, it can save you a little bit of heartache and grief if you absolutely cannot take an outage. So it's a risk thing. Like you always say, we got to, as long as we know our risks and we're accepting them. Now, don't smirk, Vadims. I see that. I'm just telling you, sometimes we have to make things work.
I was going to say, I agree with both of you. And that may seem like an impossible position to take. But here's my thoughts on it. For normal CA activities where we are renewing a CA because it's reached its validity period, I absolutely agree with Vadims. You do it with new keys. There are times where it's okay not to do new keys. And a good example, not that it ever happens to me, and I'm sure it's never happened to anyone here, is you stand up a CA and you find, oops, you made a typo in a name, or there's a validity period problem. And you literally just created the key pair. And if I created an RSA key pair that I thought was going to be good for 20 years, and 5 minutes later I find out there's a typo and I need to change my CA certificate before I've gone into production, I'm okay with renewing with the same key. So it's a nuanced thing, but also the Vadims side. See, I can play favorites both ways. There's nothing wrong to do that renewal with a new key. It's certainly nothing wrong. But then again, that's exactly how Jake wound up on a project recently with 8 key renewals and having to go through 8 key exports and imports to get over the SHA2. So yeah, I could go both ways.
Very presidential of you.
Oh no, it wasn't meant to be that way.
I'm just kidding.
It's called nuance.
Yeah, okay.
It's called nuance to all of this. All right. So the other thing I thought I would touch on real quick, we just had a blog article go out, and I actually got a couple of comments back on it already. So that's great. But there is a forthcoming change to how browsers are going to be trusting supposedly public SSL and TLS certificates. And really what the change is that Chrome and Safari will now only trust SSL TLS certificates that are valid for 1 year. This change goes into effect September 1st of this year. And like most of the times when we see these changes, it only impacts certificates that are issued after that date. So if you have a 2-year certificate that's being issued right now, that will continue to be valid post September 1st. The interesting thing is this went to the CAB forum, the CA browser forum last year, which is really where the certificate authorities in the public space and the browser manufacturers agree to standards, and the vote failed. As a forum, they did not want to move to 1-year certificates. But that doesn't stop browsers from doing things unilaterally. So Apple made an announcement that they were going to go down to a 1-year life cycle, and Chrome recently came out and said the same thing. Now, the significance here, other than the fact that it's going to affect public certificates, in the past, we have seen these changes, such as the requirement to use SHA2 versus SHA1, as well as the requirements to use subject alternative names rather than subject names, supposedly only apply to public CAs. But we have seen these bleed into privately operated PKIs. I think some of this is, it's oftentimes difficult for browsers to know, is a PKI chain something that's publicly trusted or something that has been added there by an organization or an individual. And some of the browsers have a little better time. So Microsoft, they own their own root program in the operating system. As a browser, they then know what those contents are. It's a little easier for them to make the distinction. Chrome doesn't have its own trust store. It doesn't come as part of the browser itself. So it's dependent on the operating system. They say, and if you look at the GitHub code, which somebody shared with me, supposedly there's supposed to be a selection for this is something that is publicly trusted or something that's locally done. But those SHA1s, the SHA2, and the subject alternative names were supposed to only apply to the public CAs, but we saw private certificates get affected by this. So really our stance is, until we see this in the wild in September, we're wanting organizations to know that your internal SSL TLS certificates are likely to be impacted by this. Since it's only browsers, things that are like RDP certificates and client authentication search for Wi-Fi, VPN, that kind of stuff aren't going to be impacted. It's only things that browsers are going to see. So what you're doing right now will continue to be valid, but as of September 1st, you may start to see problems with new SSL TLS certificates if they're going to be valid for more than 398 days, which is what the new standard is. That's a big uptick from a management perspective. Because these are typically web servers and appliances, somebody's usually manually doing these things, making a request, binding them in IIS or to some browser or putting them into an appliance. This is going to double the effort, because up until now, you've been able to do 2 years. Now it's going to be a year. And if we see the trending, it wouldn't surprise me if in another year or two, it's going to be 3 months. Let's Encrypt is already there. I don't like to use them as a bellwether. They have their own problems, but definitely a shorter life cycle. So really, I think for organizations that already have a certificate management system like KeyFactor or AppUX or something like that, will already have mechanisms to do some of this lifecycle stuff. But if you're in the boat where you've been getting by just using the Microsoft PKI or something else, no certificate lifecycle, you've been managing these things, you should start getting a sense for how many of these things are going to need renewal, how often, and how much work there is, because it's essentially going to double. It's certainly possible that we won't see this bleed over and it will only be on the public side, but whatever you're running on the public side is going to have increased workloads as well. So if you want some more details, we have that on our blog. You can just go to pkisolutions.com/blog, and we've got some more details there. So if you have any questions about that or concerns, go ahead and pop over to the Q&A and let us know as well. Let's see. We've got a couple other questions that have come in. Riva, thank you. You are all over this today. So Riva asked a follow-up question. She said, if you change the algorithm on a CA certificate that's a new CA certificate, and apps have to load it into their stores, right? I think it's a little more complicated than that, but when we change, if we're talking about like going from RSA to say some post-quantum thing, there is no easy way to say, I want my CA to change its encryption provider. It can't create a key and send that to a parent CA and get re-signed. If we want to do something like tell our CA to start doing SHA-512 instead of SHA-256, that's really just a setting that affects what it does when it issues things. So when we're needing to change our CA certificates, I think we're going to find ourselves having to deploy new PKIs. What do you think, Jake?
Yeah, I think the same thing. Making a change like that, SHA1 to SHA2 or something big, is going to require a top-down rebuilding. Even if we can partially reuse some things, servers, but it's going to be rebuilding to get us up to that standard. Yeah.
Well, Vadims, maybe that's an idea for a future tool. You can figure out how to get the Microsoft CA to use two providers at the same time, so that we can. No, I'm kidding. No. But yeah, there's definitely going to be an impact down the road. It's the same thing you would face today if you want to go to ECC and your CA is already on RSA. There's no way to convert. It just can't sit in both worlds at the same time. I'm going to pop around. This other question came in, and this Vadims always has great opinions here, so we'll see what he has to say here. Vadims, the question is from Thomas. He says, since most companies have a heterogeneous system of Windows and Linux, why hasn't Microsoft PKI focused on integrating Linux systems through SCEP or through Acme in the recent years? What do you think, Vadims?
I think that Microsoft did integration with Linux, MacOS, or any other platform. It is the question would be why no one else integrated with Microsoft because since Windows Server 2008 R2, Microsoft ships certificate enrollment web services do not mess with Web Enrollment website. Web Services is a SOAP-based transport protocol, which can be used by any non-Windows client which supports XML parsing. I don't see any issues from Microsoft side because they expose such functionality, but no one implemented clients for their platforms. It is a different question.
Yeah, the SESCEP was Microsoft's grand idea. I was there at the time when they were working on it. It was going to be, hey, all the public CAs, they're going to implement SESCEP, and the Microsoft IIS servers will be able to request certificates and renew automatically, and the whole world will be peachy. I think the other thing is, the good thing is that there is a robust set of third-party solutions that are out there, and I know that's always a hard thing to get people to be willing to look at. We've got a partnership with a company called Revicent, and their Cert Accord product. All it does is Linux and Unix and Macintosh enrollments from a Microsoft CA. As you go up the food chain, you can certainly find capabilities in things like Venafi and Keyfactor with their CMS solution. So there's definitely solutions that are out there that could be part of a broader thing. But the great thing about SESCEP is it was there before things like Acme existed. It's just that people chose never to actually implement the thing. But it certainly had some potential. Let's see here. We've got a couple other things to see. Let's see. Another question came through here. All right. Well, this one, I like this one. It was over in the chat channel. Jake, I'm going to throw this one to you. It says, would you use an HSM to store a key for just an issuing/root CA for the actual certificates issued to client machines, web servers, etc. So I think what they're asking for is would you or could you? And I've seen this question before, so I might be interpreting it wrong. So Mark, let me know if I'm asking the right way. We have had people ask before, can I use the HSM to store the keys for client certificates, such as web servers and client machines and so forth?
Right.
What are some of the complexities with that or difficulties, Jake?
Well, we're making whatever machine it is we want to store keys from or device, they need to be a client of that HSM. And when we make them a client of that, so those keys are now off of that device. So every time we need them, we need to make a trip back and forth to the HSM. So I know I looked at a solution from Venafi in the past where we could store the keys from, I believe it was F5 appliances on HSMs. Yeah. But the build out and the number of HSMs that was required to do that was crazy. Cost wise. So it can be done, but then every client that was going to talk to those HSMs has to be able to communicate with them, and a lot of times requires an additional license to do that, to store their keys on the HSM.
Yeah, and it can make sense if we're doing something like a SQL server and just doing TDE encryption, or we've got a web server and we want the speed of the HSM to speed it up. But if I've got 5,000 clients that are going to use a certificate to get on the Wi-Fi, I've got two problems. One, 5,000 clients. And then two is if they can't access their key to be able to use their certificate, they can't get onto the network to be able to get to the HSM. So we don't really see HSMs getting applied on the client side and to some limited degree to servers and application systems. We definitely use it for things like OCSP and NDIS can use it as well. So there's definitely locations other than just an issuing or a root CA where you can use those things. Right. Let's see here. We got a couple other ones. James had a great question. I know I see this one all the time. I'll throw this one to Vadims. James asks, is there a way that we can require a SAN for certificate request via the web enrollment site? Internal customers that are not issuing certificates and Chrome doesn't like. So essentially, it's the whole problem of the web enrollment site will take what you shove in there. He wants to know if there's a way to require a SAN on the web enrollment site. I know where you're going to go with this, Vadims. I know where you're going to go. Come on. Yeah. Is there a way to require it with the default site?
No.
And how would you fix this, Vadims? What do you want to do?
I would switch from web enrollment to something else.
All right. That was. I was actually waiting for you to say we should rewrite the web enrollment site because I know you've been playing around in the pages.
Yes, but rewriting web enrollment pages will cost you much more than making.
It cost me.
Yeah, it's going to cost you.
Yes, it will. It really will cost you. I'm still in a process on rewriting existing web enrollment portal, and it is a real pain.
Yeah,
really, it will cost you much more than developing a quick WinForms application, which will integrate with a certain role library to generate certificate requests.
Yeah, the thing that kind of comes to my mind is. There are kind of web enrollment solutions that are part of, say, a key factor or Venafi, where you can kind of get that self-service portal. That's a big price to pay. But if you're looking for how can we potentially get the website to do it, I'd love to hear your opinions on that. As we're building out our development slate, if you would be interested in perhaps a customizable, licensable version of a web enrollment site without the Venafi and key factor and all those sorts of things, let us know. I'm not promising anything, but all I can say is it's hard to keep Vadims from poking around in those pages already. If we don't figure out how to put some confines around it, we may wind up with something anyway. So no, shoot us a note if you're interested, and we'll see where it goes from there. A couple other things I thought I'd bring up, and we'll see if we can get to another question. One is for those of you that are on Venafi, just a little bit of interesting news that we've seen from a couple of customers that are out there. Venafi is Venafi. We could probably have a whole conversation about that someday. But the latest that we've heard is they are asking for anywhere from about 6 to 10% for a rate increase this year. So if you are coming up on the end of your contract, be prepared for a nice little sticker shock when they come knocking on the door this year. Of course, we'd love to talk to you about some alternative options if you'd like to go down that route. In other news, if you haven't already seen it, we have launched a free version of our in-depth PKI class. It was available several weeks ago. I am just thrilled with the interest in it. We now have almost 250 students that have signed up for that free trial class. It's really just a portion of our larger course that we have online. If you haven't had a chance to check it out, it's completely free to do. You can do it on the site. It's the same content. It's just really maybe 3/4 of the first day when we were doing these as a live class. So I'm really quite pleased with that. I will say we did have an attempt to do a little bit of a contest for student number 200, but they didn't respond. So I'm not quite sure what happened to that person. But I did reach out, and I was trying to give them a nice little award, but they didn't want to talk to me. So maybe we'll do something for number 300. The other thing is our official contest looking for a theme song still going on. So if you joined us at the top of the hour, you got the nice little Wayne's World. I think I'm just going to have to rotate through some different theme songs, and it might have to be like Too Close for Comfort next month or something like that. So if you have a garage band, if you've got a Casio keyboard, any kind of musical talent, or a cat you can stick on a musical instrument, and you'd like to submit a theme song, let us know. And we'd be happy to run that through next month. So we've got time for maybe one more question. So I'll pop over there. Let's see here. Miguel had a question. Miguel was asking, what is the expected behavior for certificate archival? If auto enrollment is set to renew a certificate, does Windows keep attempting to renew until the certificate actually expires and then it gets archived? Jake, Vadims, either one of you want to jump on and take that one?
So I can try to answer this question. When certificate is marked for archival in local certificate store, so Windows auto enrollment will try to renew it until it expires. So if auto enrollment isn't able to renew it, it will archive the certificate, just add an archived flag, and then we'll try to get a new certificate based on that template. So it isn't a renewal, but a brand new request will be issued to CA, because expired certificates cannot be used for renewal.
Yep. Yeah, Jake, anything you want to add to that one?
No, that was my thing. Is that once it expires, the only thing I would add is that duration at which it tries to start that renewal process, the default 6 weeks. With everyone being remote now, I've seen some clients where we've had to push that out a long way because policy isn't getting applied to those remote users. So if you find that your auto enroll certificates are falling off and not getting renewed, extend that period out a little bit while we're in this time.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, somehow we managed to waste everybody's time once again. It's June, and they have spent another hour sitting by their computers listening to us talk about PKI. Just an amazing amount of time. So, but thanks for coming by. Like I said, this is going to be a regular thing for us. We will get a July date set up. We're kind of expecting that the same format as always. We'll be taking your questions and saving them for next month. Shoot them across. If there's anything timely, we'll of course follow up. Need a theme song? I'm going to keep harping on that. I'm going to reach out to everybody. So let's get this theme song thing done so that we can talk about something else other than the theme song. Jake, Vadims, thanks for coming by. Andy, you did a great job taking care of our questions. Thanks everybody for coming, and we'll see you next month.